Oh, who the fuck are you? I'm the guy who does his job. You must be the other guy.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, whoever you are, because it is Morning Someone for March 6, 2024. My name is Bernie Burns, joining me for the first time ever on this podcast. I thought it was important to have this person join us today because, as you know, the Oscars are coming up this weekend, March 10th. And one of the biggest stories about the Oscars so far has been not who's nominated for an Oscar, but who is not nominated. Specifically, Margot Robbie was not nominated for her role as Barbie. And Greta Gerwig was not nominated as the director of the highest grossing movie of the year that everyone loved. So I thought, who better to bring in and talk about the importance of Barbie in modern culture than our own personal Barbie? Miss Barbara Dunkelman.
Wow, what an honor.
Hey, Barb.
Hello, Bernie.
Don't you get heavily associated with not only just Barbie, but also Margot Robbie as well.
I feel like that association is mostly me.
you're trying to fit that in any way that you can. I don't blame you.
Aspirational, yeah.
I do not blame you at all.
She's a beautiful creature.
She's had a kind of a wild career too, because I'm sure she was in lots of things before it, but I first remember her from Wolf of Wall Street, which is a wild part. It's a wild movie.
But goddamn, is she gorgeous in that movie?
Have you ever seen The Big Short, which is about the stock market collapse? And
yes.
She does the explanation of tranches, and she's in the bathtub.
Oh my God, she does.
Yeah, that's her. That's her.
Wow.
And it's weird because I have a friend. I have a friend of mine who she really likes that movie, but she doesn't like it. She won't watch it again because of that part. She thinks it's very exploitive or, inappropriate for that.
I get that, but that's also, the movie came out in what? Early 2000s, The Big Short? No.
Yeah.
Actually, wait.
I think it's great. I mean, they also have Anthony Bourdain in there as well. Like, you have to have ways to explain things to people.
Yeah.
You're talking about bundling different mortgages together and selling them in unique ways. How are you going to make that compelling to an audience? I think they nailed it. I think they got it done.
Naked lady in a bathtub.
Yeah. There's another one in there. Selena Gomez is also one of those segments. And
I need to rewatch this movie.
Yeah, you'd never remember it, right? Because
No.
it's really the way they talk about betting and how they bet on bets on bets on bets.
Yeah.
And it goes backwards. And it's Selena Gomez and somebody else whom I can't remember,
Have you seen Selena Gomez in anything recently?
So I really liked a series called Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask if you've seen that.
Dude, there is I've known Barb since you were 15?
I think technically 14.
14, and you are now 22, right?
God, I wish.
How long I've known you more than half your life.
I'm 34 now.
You're 34.
Yeah.
So you were probably as old as I was when I met you.
I think I'm older. I was talking about this with our friend Gus as well recently, how I think the first time I met you guys...
Well, let's not go throwing words like friend around.
My friend Gus. I think he was 28 when I met him.
It doesn't seem like it. So for the original Rooster Teeth group, Gus was like the baby.
Yeah.
Like, he's the baby.
He is the baby. And so you might have been 30?
What year was it? Do you remember?
2005.
So 2005.
Is when I first met you in person.
I'd been like 32, 33. Yeah, you're older.
So
Yeah.
When I look at that, I go, I'm going to be your age someday. No! Time! Slipping! Yeah, it's kind of surreal to think about how long I've known you guys in the span of my life. Like, you guys are, honestly, it's going to sound weird. You guys, Gavin, I think are like my oldest friends.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, that
And my oldest friends.
Also, it's also like, it's also like continuous as well. Also, weird milestone as well. We might have worked with each other as much or more than anyone else we've worked with because we were on the podcast together for 6 years, 7 years straight.
Maybe even longer?
Yeah.
I think I first appeared on the podcast like regularly in 2012.
We're talking about the Rooster Teeth podcast
Rooster Teeth
here.
podcast, yeah.
Yeah, and I was on that. If you were 2012, I was on it all the way up until August of 2019.
Yeah.
I got to say, none of us handled our departure from that podcast well.
Yeah.
Like my last podcast, and I get why it was done this way, but it was me and Gus and Jeff and Matt, which kind of makes sense because we knew at the time it was going to be the last thing that I was ever in for anything. But for being the podcast,
It should have been just a normal cast.
it should have just been the normal cast. Yeah.
I guess I've never really thought about it that way.
And you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but it
No,
seemed
yeah.
like to me when you left the podcast, Gus left the podcast, and also Gavin and Barbara left.
Yeah, I don't know why it was necessarily handled that way, and I think it's partly due to us not really coming up with a plan for it. I think it was seen as more of a big deal because Gus has been hosting the podcast since the podcast started.
Did you guys make the decision at the same time? Like,
I mean, we knew that it was going to be transitioning to a new cast.
okay.
And the cast like that we have right now for the RT podcast is like a set 3-person cast.
Right.
And sometimes other people come on. Like I've been on a few times when people are out of town or busy that day. So it's not like I'm not on it anymore. So I don't know. Like it was just, I think the importance was just put on Gus in that moment because he's been the host of the podcast forever. But yeah, I think in hindsight, it should have been like, hey, also us.
Well, it was kind of like also us, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I don't think I did mine the right way either.
Yeah. Again, it's like all those things are kind of hindsight 2020.
I think because we all worked in a big group for a long time, at least for me, I always became very conscious of things that I was doing that might negatively affect the people around me. Even if it's something as totally, completely normal and natural of I'm ending my run on this thing. You don't want it to be then you look up the next week and everyone's like saying negative things about the show that people are continuing to work on just because you're not on it. And I don't any of us want that.
It was a tough situation to be in because obviously I feel like everyone should be able to make their own decisions in life and choose their own path. And obviously, like you had decided for yourself, like it is time for me to move on from this and you know, next chapter of my life, which of course everyone was supportive of and excited for you. But to see that negative reaction of like, oh, well, there's no reason to watch the podcast anymore, or the podcast isn't this way anymore because Burnie's not there. It's like, we're still there. Like, we're still hanging out doing this show for you guys. Like, sorry.
I also, too, like while we're talking about this, I don't think people realize when they make those comments that it creates a weird friction between those of us who know each other, too. It's like, I feel like it as well.
For some people, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, for some people. I mean, I think some of us have been doing it for long enough to where it doesn't feel that way, but it's not, you'd rather not deal with that than deal with it.
Right.
So then it becomes easier to try to mitigate that. And by taking those steps to mitigate it, you end up not celebrating your own milestones well enough. Like I'm sure you had those same thoughts about Armando and Griff and Andrew coming in. You didn't want to do anything that would make them have a harder start, you know? And but at the same time, you should take the time to pause and celebrate what you're doing, you know?
That's very true. But again, you don't want to put anyone in that position.
Well, some people.
Maybe Armando. He could take it. No, I think it's also just like, you know, not everyone loves every decision that is made. A lot of things are out of our control. Like, obviously, we're not going to force anyone to stay doing content longer than they want to. And I think as creators, what you want to be doing creatively changes a lot.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people like something a certain way and they hold on to that forever. And if it changes or someone leaves or a new person comes in, it's like, what is going on? I will vehemently be against this. And, you know, in that case, I would just maybe stop watching something that I don't enjoy anymore.
Yeah.
But not everyone is like that.
Not everybody's like that. You know, I mean, part of it is I've learned is that people want to get involved and they want to participate. And then this is the hard lesson I had to learn, that some people enjoy something by complaining about it. You know what I mean? Which I freely admit I'm guilty of that as well. Like we became synonymous with complaining about Apple products. And finally one day I had to say, I like these things. Like the reason I'm complaining about them is not because I'm actually mad at these Apple products like my iPhone or whatever. I'm just mad at the crazy man versus technology aspect of life.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff I used. The reason why I'm not complaining about Android or whatever is I don't use that stuff because I don't like it. You know?
I also think there is a distinct difference between complaining about something, even if it is on a public-facing podcast, a very popular podcast, complaining about something or someone or someone's performance in something versus I am tweeting you directly to tell you that you are not funny or that I do not like what you are making.
Well, that's a good lead into our conversation as well, which is, you know, talking about Barbie and the Oscars and how important this movie is to so many different women. At least it is in my life. So many different women. It's interesting because I maybe when it first came out, I mean, it's Barbie, right?
Yeah.
So I would fully expect some women I know in my life to be like, come on. Like, this is the movie we get, a movie about a doll, from the 50s. But I was personally amazed and shocked at how I responded to the movie. And I was very pleased to see how important this became to so many different women in my life.
I think it was just so unexpected, as you said. Like, I've seen the trailer for Barbie. I had heard about the movie. I didn't really know super deeply what it was about. And I think a lot of people who went into it came out really moved by it and very kind of shocked at what like the overall message was of that movie. In a good way.
Had you ever seen any of Greta Gerwig's stuff before? By the way, I always have to be careful because I always want to say Greta Thunberg, which is like the weird. You just imagine her.
Very different people.
Her directing Barbie.
Honestly, it'd probably be a very interesting movie.
It would be very interesting.
No, I think I have Little Women.
Barbie is no longer plastic. She is now sustainable cardboard.
She hugs all the trees now. Yeah, no, I have seen Little Women, which is Greta Gerwig, correct?
Yes.
And I'm so bad with directors.
So she made a movie called Lady Bird, which was an original script.
That one I have not seen yet.
Coming of age story. It's really great. I can just tell you this. If you haven't seen it before, what a great weekend to watch it, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of movies on the nominated for Best Picture along with Barbie. There's now up to 10 nominees they can have for Best Picture. There's a lot of them. I went through the list. I don't recognize anything but Oppenheimer and Barbie.
What else we got? I know there's Killers of the Flower Moon.
Which is, by the way, one of the most important things about awards is it makes people aware of movies that they might have missed and get them to watch it. I don't think anybody missed Barbie.
Oh, I did see Poor Things. That's on there.
Oh, is that the Emma Stone one?
Yeah.
How is it?
I really liked it.
See, I always want to watch every Best Picture nominee, but now that they've increased the category to 10,
it's a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work to watch 10 movies. I do. I guess I have a couple days now before the Oscars come out.
Yeah, we got The Holdovers, American Fiction, The Zone of Interest. Never even heard of that movie. Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, Maestro, and Killers of the Flower Moon.
I am really looking forward to next year when the Zellner Sasquatch movie is nominated for Best Picture. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
I didn't realize they do The Curse.
Yeah, the Nathan Fielder one. Emma Stone's in that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they directed, these are guys, Nathan Zellner. Did you ever work with him?
Not directly, no. But I had met him when I visited.
Yeah, because he was at Congress and then you came to work at our Ralph Ablanedo office. Yeah, so I actually knew David way better. Like I knew David in college.
Oh, okay.
And he was a guy, I had keys to the television station and I would just go late at night when people wanted to edit and I would just sit in there and do my homework so people could have access to the edit bays.
Oh.
And David Zellner was one of the people who was always in there all the time editing movies. And we've worked together like in different ways over the years, not too much directly lately, but really directly with Nathan, where he came to work. He played Andy the Bomb in Red vs. Blue.
Yep.
Although David was lead in Strangerhood. Which
he was.
I don't think that might have been stricken from his MDB.
Yeah.
Or his IMDb, excuse me. And so I was I played a banshee in a Sasquatch thing they did 20 years ago.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I think Matt might have shot that movie for them. Anyway, so this Nathan Fielder show,
The Curse,
they were the only directors of episodes that weren't directed by Nathan Fielder. Everything else was directed by Nathan Fielder. So that could be the start of something, a long-standing collaboration for them. I hope. It was wildly popular. I have to admit, I haven't yet seen it. I need to sit down and watch it.
We're at the time of recording this only a few episodes in. I think we're maybe halfway through the series.
Oh, is that right?
It's great. Boy, is it hard to watch at times.
Oh, because it's
like the cringe.
Yeah.
Like I look over to Trevor, my fiance, and like literally I'm looking at him like through my fingers, and he has like the covers up over his head.
It's tough, man. Bad. It's really I think I've always felt like cringe was like a self-confidence thing, and it really tests your own like, could you weather this situation on your own?
Yeah.
I think embarrassment is the easiest emotion to recall. Like I can remember times in my life when I was angry or maybe sad too, happy. I don't feel like I feel the same level of happiness or sadness that I do recalling it. I feel like I can recall embarrassment and make myself feel it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of like how smell triggers memory. embarrassment.
Yeah.
Triggers memory.
Like
too.
a trigger. I feel it. I'm like, I have to stop thinking about this because I feel terrible and I feel embarrassed.
And if you fart in front of a group of people, that's going to be both embarrassment and smell that triggers that.
Yeah, exactly. You get the double whammy.
Remember exactly how that fart smelled.
I haven't eaten Mexican food in 20 years. I'm afraid it will go back. So, are you hoping for a Barbie win? Do you care?
So, it's tough.
Oppenheimer destroyed at the Golden Globes. No pun intended.
It did.
It destroyed the Globes. Oppenheimer.
God. Edit that out. No, I'm kidding. I really loved Barbie. I feel like it deserves, and it's not nominated, unfortunately, but like Best Director. I think like set design, it absolutely should be winning. I don't know. The problem is I haven't seen all the Best Picture, so it's hard to say if it should win.
Were you at all invested in the controversy about it being nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay? I need to look up and see versus original. I need to see if that was the Oscars or the Golden Globes where like
okay,
Judd Apatow weighed in everything and said, how can they say this was an adapted screenplay?
Like, adapted off of what?
Well, Ashley and I were talking about it. It's like there is characters, you know, Ken is a character, even going through Weird Barbie was kind of an original one, but even like Sugar Daddy Ken and the weird ones. And I did feel like the first like 20 minutes of the movie were an exploration of that.
Sure.
They very clearly went off in their own direction, especially with the America Ferrera's part.
Mm-hmm.
They did really amazing stuff with that. But I do feel like they did lean into like the lore of Barbie, you know, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think adapted is necessarily a negative as opposed to original screenplay. We all value the word original, but making something new out of something that people are already familiar with and having them like it, that's very, very tough to do as well.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when people compare to lore or anything like that exists. But I don't really know there's much Barbie lore.
Do people do that? Why did Barbie take her helmet off?
I like the original Barbie design. What is this?
How do you feel? Is there any like investment for you in the controversy around Ryan Gosling being nominated?
I think he deserves it. And I think Greta Gerwig should have been nominated for Best Director 100%. And I think she should have won that category because I think that movie was incredibly well directed. And I don't think anyone else could have done it. I think it's like a big part of it. I
think it's a testament to who the hell could have figured out that it was going to be a movie that so many people responded to.
Oh my God, in such an amazing, powerful way. I thought Margot Robbie was amazing as Barbie. I think all the performances in that movie were fantastic. Do I think Margot Robbie was Best Actress? No. So like I'm saying that as someone who loved Barbie, who loves Margot Robbie. I think her performance was great, but I don't think it was in the ranges that you see a lot of Best Actress nominees.
Yeah, and other award shows do have like a comedic category or something like that, which, you know, comedy and drama in terms of narrative sense is not necessarily haha funny, but it's a comedic character,
right.
You know, ends well, lighthearted, that kind of thing.
And I know these are very controversial opinions, so don't tweet me, don't X me.
What, do you mean that Margot Robbie, you think a lot of people think she should have been nominated?
Well, I think there's this like thought process of Ryan Gosling was nominated and neither Margot Robbie or Greta Gerwig were nominated. And so it ties into the whole message of the movie of...
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I'm seeing people fight about that now saying there's so much stuff going on in the world. It's like, why it's nominated for Best Picture. Why would you be so worried about this one nomination? But it's all just what people are invested in. You could say that about anything.
Invested, yeah.
You could say it about anything.
And I think Ryan Gosling was great. But again, I don't know if it was Best Actor winner.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. The thing is like I would support it wholeheartedly.
I have to now. Ash is not here, so you mentioned this is one of the few ones we do that's pre-recorded. Mm-hmm. The reason why it's pre-recorded is kind of traveling, and we don't ever like to say in like real time when I'm traveling.
Yeah.
And Ash is back in Scotland right now. I'm in Austin, and not at this moment. I'm back in Scotland as you're listening to this, but as we're recording it, I'm not. She wants me to ask you about what is it called? Fourth Wing.
Mm-hmm.
Something she says you have to read it right away because there's a new book coming out.
Yeah.
And
it just came out.
You'll get horny dragon riders spoiled for you. It's one of these books, you know, that Ashley reads that I don't know.
So Ashley actually put me back onto reading. Because she, avid reader.
Well, you're also friends with Maude Garrett, who is
true, hosts a book club and everything like that. Yeah.
She reads like a book a minute. I think.
Wild how fast and how much people read these days. I don't know how they do it.
All these ladies from Australia doing all this reading. What's going on?
They read it in their accent. But no, so she turned me on to a series called ACOTAR, Court of Thorns and Roses.
Sounds like one of your characters from Stinky Dragon.
It should be.
ACOTAR.
So that is a 5-book series that I just ate up and I loved. And she actually sent me Fourth Wing on my Kindle for my birthday back in July, which at this point is...
This is Ashley.
Yeah, Ashley. Okay. Thinking, you're going to love this. And I just haven't gotten to it yet because the author of ACOTAR, Sarah J. Maas...
ACOTAR. Every time you say it, I was going to say ACOTAR.
She has a bunch of different series, and I'm on her second one called Throne of Glass, which I think technically she wrote first, but it's the second one that
one I recognize for some reason. Although that's kind of, if you had to come up with a generic name for a fantasy novel, I think Throne of Glass might be up there.
Right. So I can't read more than one book at a time or more than one series at a time, just because my brain doesn't work that way. So I'm just getting through Throne of Glass, and then I want to get through Crescent City, which is her third series she wrote, and then I'm going to get to Fourth Wing.
Okay.
So she might be waiting a while. Although maybe just for Ashley, I'll pick it up sooner.
What's a more generic title for a fantasy novel than Throne of Glass?
Throne of Glass.
Dragons of Time. There probably is a Dragons of Time.
Wishful Bliss.
The Thorned Rose.
Court of Thorns and Roses. That's what it is.
So now are you going to out yourself here as now an avid reader?
I wouldn't say avid. I would say still casual. I'm still pretty slow.
While I'm here, and he'll probably be the first guest for Morning Someone.
I'm very disappointed you didn't go, that's my favorite part of the podcast. I listen every morning and I love it.
Burp, burp, burp.
Yeah, when you just muddle it, it's my favorite.
Yeah, whenever, I'll let you in a little secret. Whenever we think I'm going to be traveling and we have to pre-record like a day or something like that, I just flub the date every single time.
January.
It's all by purpose.
It's funny though, because I did actually, Trevor and I went to Scotland, which is where we got engaged, but we actually visited you guys when we were there.
Yes.
And recently, on Instagram, I had posted some pictures from our Scotland trip. And then people are like, oh, are you going to be Bernie's guest? And I'm like, this was from November 2023.
Yeah, but they're right, Barb.
Right. Yeah. So it's just funny that now I'm here.
Yeah, it was really great to have you guys come out. Not everyone is willing to make the trip. And not only did you guys come out there, you decided to get engaged in Scotland. So now all your super incredible photos you post are from Dean Village in Edinburgh.
Yeah, it's a magical place.
So one of the things we do when guests come is we have a little weird tradition where you tried the gin from the previous guest.
Yep.
That's a well-timed burp, by the way. I'm trying the gin.
I'm drinking a stout.
And then we have a little gin still by which we make a new gin. So then you try the previous guest gin. We send them a photo of you drinking it. And then you make the one for the next guest. I think about home. Your gin, I'm happy to tell you, over the course out of 8 gins, your gin came in second.
Who's first?
My college buddies, who were a bunch of fucking idiots, and they made a really great gin.
How dare they?
Yeah. And your gin, I'll tell you offline who tried your gin. I don't know if they want to be known as traveling or whatever. But they enjoyed it very, very much. But you and I, we make 2 bottles of gin, 2 small bottles of gin. And we had tried that with you and Trevor. And yours was great. Yours was fantastic.
It's funny because there was another guest you guys had who apparently had a notably bad gin.
We don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it. But we tried it. I don't think it was too bad, but we were happy with ours. Came out well.
There was a lot of pepper in there. It was a lot of pepper. But that's a really fun tradition. We went to a little, look, it's just me and Ashley. We got to do anything we can to keep ourselves occupied.
Make gin.
There is not a lot of restaurants in northern rural Scotland, as you now know. We went around, we had some fun. We went to distilleries, it's like the main industry up there besides sheep.
Trevor and I were saying, I think we drank more on that trip with you guys than we had probably in all of 2023 combined.
Yes. Yeah. You got to watch out. You really have to watch out. But I have to say that the people in Scotland too are also really careful about it. There used to be a huge history of drinking. We went on a tour of the Balvenie distillery, and they did this really cool thing where we went to the cask room. Oh yeah. And they let us sample it.
Was it called Walk the Dog?
Yes, that's called a copper dog.
Yeah. Where it's like this long cylindrical pipe kind of thing on a chain.
Yep.
That you drop into a barrel and then pick up, and it's full of the whiskey.
Right. And the copper won't react with the whiskey, so they can taste it over many years, basically.
And basically the guy pours it in your hand, your open hands.
Yep.
And then you just sip on it right there. But But man, because like after you're like, I have nothing to wash my hands with, so now my skin is just gonna smell like whiskey all day.
But you don't, right? Do you remember during COVID? That was, by the way, something they probably did not do during COVID.
Yeah.
Do you remember like some of the distilleries around here, like the vodka distilleries, like Tito's in Austin? They made a hand sanitizer. They stopped production of their vodka to produce that. All the ones that were made out of ethanol, essentially, they all just smelled like booze to me.
Yeah.
All that smell. But that antiseptic like hand sanitizer smell, that triggers memories of like going back to COVID. Yeah, but we had a blast doing that, and then then they take you on a tasting and all that stuff. But drinking like out of your hands while you're in a warehouse full of barrels that have been in there for like 20, 30,
so cold in there.
50 years sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's no AC in there or no insulation. It's just an old stone building that gets cold.
Hands are wet too.
I know. But I was going to say, they used to have such a much stronger culture of drinking there. The postman, who retired, he said the guys before him, they would plan their delivery routes based on when the distilleries were doing their tastings for the day to see which barrels they were going to use that year.
Wow.
Because that's a regular process they do. And they would, of course, the postie shows up, they go, here, have a dram of whiskey, a glass of whiskey. And he would do that 3 or 4 times on the route. And he said by the end, they were like weaving all over the road. Yeah, but now it's like if we tell people we're going to the pub, they won't let us drive. Like even have a drink. In the pub, by the way, you can go for just dinner and that's it.
Sure.
And they'll be like, no, I have to drive you. Let me drive you there and back.
I mean, I think Gavin even has talked about how responsible they are with drinking and driving in the UK.
Yeah.
But no, it's wild to like be at those distilleries and see all those barrels and be like, this is billions of dollars worth of whiskey. Just
all
like
around you
in this place. Yeah, it's wild.
And the weird part about it is it's like most of it is doing nothing. Like these huge industries, they make the whiskey over the course of like 2 days. Like we had fun. We got to watch them make the barrels.
Yeah, that was so cool.
We could have sat in there for I could have sat there all day. And
I know. Well, it's like watch each person do their specific task. It was just fascinating.
And then they make the whiskey. That process might take maybe 3 days, and then it goes into a barrel for 21 years.
Oh my God, yeah.
Sits in a barrel in a warehouse. You know what I mean? It's just wild.
And it's crazy that like people who are working there might not end up like they start something that they don't finish, like they don't live through to see the end of it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Like even a whiskey, think about this though too. Even a whiskey that is a 10, 12-year-old whiskey is like half as much time as Rooster Teeth has existed. And it seems like such a long time, but it's like, but then there's some that are like 30 years, 40 years that are in the barrel. Some of those that have been in the barrel since before you were born, which is just crazy to think about. All right. Any closing thoughts about the Oscars? Are you hoping for Barbie a big win for them?
I hope Barbie wins something. Yeah. Something. Just give it to him.
I actually have to admit, I haven't looked at the competition that Ryan Gosling is up against. Ken was great. I thought it was great to draw in male viewers, but I don't know that he'll win. So let's all cheer for Barbie for Best Picture. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll be rooting for Barbie this weekend, and we'll also be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you'll be back as well. We'll see you then. Bye, everybody.